Broadcasting Corporation. Professor, please join us at the podium for the keynote address. Professor Amin Al-Hassan is an academic, an expert in communication, so you have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Honorable Fatima Abubakar, Deputy Minister of Information, President of the ECOWAS Commission, or the Rep, President of ECONEC, and Chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Cabo Verde, the Deputy Chairperson of Ghana's Electoral Commission, the Deputy Head of the European Union Delegation, and Deputy Country Rep of GIZ, heads of electoral commissions in West Africa, and members of Electoral Commission in West Africa present, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I want to express my gratitude to ECONEC and the Electoral Commission of Ghana and GIZ for putting together this critically important symposium. More especially, I want to express my gratitude to these organizations for inviting me to spark the conversations as a keynote speaker. The theme for this symposium, an efficient communication strategy for enhanced relationship between EMBs and electoral stakeholders in West Africa, actually builds on scholarly and popular interest on how EMBs relate with their publics. It will therefore be an understatement for me to know how significant, topical, and timely the theme for this workshop symposium is towards the developing democracies in West Africa. We may have to remind ourselves that the entire electoral process is characterized and defined by communicative actions. The voter communicates his or her choice on the ballot. The counting and collation processes are aggregative practices of communication, and the final results and the very announcement of the winners and losers become arguably the most significant news story in the electoral cycle. Indeed, this latter point brings home to the fact that EMBs engage in political communication, not to be confused with the partisan political communication. They engage in political communication to the extent that they inform stakeholders and the public writ large about voting policies and procedures. They communicate with stakeholders to evolve democratic procedures and policies. During elections, they provide status updates which have significant ramifications not just in content, but in delivery and timeliness. These are just few of the political communicative activities of EMBs engaged in, but it helps to reinforce the substantial communicative dimension of their work and the relevance of the topic to this symposium. Communication strategy, electoral stakeholders, enhanced relationships, by all means stand out as key concerns of EMBs. Our conversation at this symposium should therefore be guided by these keywords. EMBs in West Africa sub-region emerge at the cusp of seismic changes in the global communication realm, mostly as a result of rapid advancements in digital technologies. Canadian philosopher Marshall McLuhan prophesied about these changes in the 1960s when he noted that new communication technologies were transforming the world into a global village. This is relevant to us for many reasons, including the speed at which news travel, and audience expectations of instantaneous, accurate communication in contemporary times. It is also relevant in terms of who can engage in point-to-mass communication. Historically, the preserve of traditional mass media, radio, television, newspapers, and the means by which what is today known as digital mass self-communication happens. However, while there have been changes, what hasn't changed is the expectation of stakeholders and the public that governance institutions would function efficiently and effectively and with integrity. As well, despite the rise of mass self-communication, the traditional media collectively remain the source of record of verifiable, trustworthy information. Election management bodies, like several other governance institutions, have gone ahead to modernize their operational infrastructure by adopting digital technologies. Just when they have adopted these technologies or about to adopt, they soon realize that there is more to these technologies than what they promise. Political parties, who are major clients of election management bodies, have not been left out in this embrace of the seductive power of digital technologies. Political parties have come to realize that apart from the communicative processes of campaigning for votes, they need to pay attention to the communicative infrastructure they put in place to relate with EMBs. EMBs must therefore confront the all-important question of what communication strategy they need to put in place to have professionally effective relationship with their publics. The conversation that I bring to this symposium will therefore point out key problematics that are communicative in nature, and then close by suggesting key ingredients of a communication strategy that an EMB must have. I agree with the ideas articulated in the concept paper for this symposium and want to build on them. I particularly want to underscore the point that stakeholders in elections will always evaluate the performance of EMBs based on, one, their technical performance, which includes transparency in procedures, professionalism, ability to effectively manage electoral operations, and the means used to carry out the task of an election management. Two, their ability to demonstrate independence, apply electoral laws impartially, fair treatment of political parties, the media, and electoral stakeholders in general. It therefore stands as given that the communication strategy of an EMB should only be geared at facilitating the realization of these two criteria in practice as well as in perception. Perceptions matter when it comes to EMBs and their publics. The new media ecosystem, which facilitates mass self-communication, coincides with a new era of post-truth, where what constitutes the truth or fact is not only defined by what it is, but has become a contested narrative of how you say it and who says it. This is why transparency and the ability to build trust with audiences becomes a key ingredient of the communication strategy of EMBs. It is also important to remember that traditional media have not become obsolete, but rather complementary to new media in a new media ecosystem characterized by convergence. Therefore, strategies that privilege new media to the exclusion of traditional media will have limited success. I have already alluded to the transformation of the analog media technoscapes of old and the emergence of new media ecology. That is with us today. I want us to reflect on two key determinants of this new media system: internet penetration and social media adoption in the ECOWAS region. Of the 15 member states, only 3 countries have internet penetration above 50% of the population. And these are Cabo Verde and Ghana and Nigeria. The further 6 have more than 25% of the population having internet access. Again, of the 50 member countries, only 1 has more than 50% of the population using social media, and that is Cabo Verde. Again, only 1 has 25% of its population using social media, and that is Ghana. Despite the low figures in other, so while a good chunk of the voter population in West Africa may be outside the internet and social media coverage area, a communication strategy that must stand the test of time should anticipate the impact of internet and social media on the relationship between EMBs and their publics. This brings me to the subject of threats of digital communication technologies, threats to these technologies in the work of EMBs. Apart from the regular election stakeholders, such as citizens, political parties, civil society organizations, traditional rulers, to mention a few, there are also unwelcome stakeholders that a robust communication strategy must anticipate. Media historians remind us that the mischievous class of hacktivists, digital information manipulators, and digital bandits have always existed in a different form and are likely to be around for a very long time to come. National legislations are lagging far behind in regulating digital banditry. It goes beyond cybersecurity, even though cybersecurity legislations are a very welcome development. I want to limit my discussion on this particular matter to 4 types of threats that should be anticipated by a good communication strategy. Like it or not, the digital bandits are also publics of the EMBs because of their high nuisance value. You can't underrate them in your calculation. 1, hacking of systems. This looks like an exclusively IT security issue, but oftentimes hackers do so to make a public statement. And that is why it's a matter for a communication strategy. The global literature on threats to digital communication technologies for election purposes indicates that the list of victims includes some EMBs in West Africa. 2, mass misinformation and disinformation campaigns. EMBs must command legitimacy in the eye of all stakeholders. Anti-EMB propaganda in the form of mass disinformation can be executed by a small group of digital bandits operating outside jurisdiction. The challenge here then is how to ensure that the effect of such groups can be minimized by the work of EMB's communication department. 3, micro-targeted manipulations. With access to comprehensive demographic data of the electorate, digital bandits are capable of using online media to target certain groups with disinformation, and this can affect the quality of the electoral output. 4, online trolling. EMB staff, especially the senior executives, can be individually targeted with trolls to harass, antagonize, and provoke with well-crafted falsehoods to emotionally destabilize them and create distrust between EMB and their diverse publics. The 4 examples I have provided are not exhaustive. These are to remind us that EMBs must be ready to deal with both usual and unusual publics. I bring these 4 factors to stress that part of the communication strategy of an EMB must include crisis communication. Another key feature of the new media system is the increasing adoption of satellite television reception. What we are beginning to discover is that a good number of satellite-based TV channels accessible to urban and rural populations in West Africa are operating outside the regulatory ambit of national communication regulators. What are the implications of these developments for the very work of national EMBs? How can EMBs prepare to contain the excesses of foreign-based media? Let me seize this opportunity to make a point on media regulation. We often focus on the national framework for electronic media regulation, but the technology has gone regional, continental, and global. ECOWAS member states should begin to put in place a regional framework for implementing national regulatory legislations so that we can have effective control over aberrant content. But even before this happens, EMBs should continue to assess their national risk factors and continuously adjust their communication strategies to take care of fallouts from media channels that have the large audiences within our countries without a commensurate degree of responsibility. In conclusion, I want to identify some solutions targeted at corporate communications functions of the EMBs. And here too, I only have 4. 1, communication departments should be set up as part of the core structures of EMBs where they are not yet, and with the head being part of the decision-making management team. It should not be peripheral to the business of EMBs. The EMB's communicative mandate must also include innovative means of ensuring timely and accurate communication of information, leveraging on emerging communication technologies. 2, provide for media monitoring and surveillance unit under the communication departments. The business of corporate communication has gone beyond reactive strategy to proactive strategy. It now encapsulates monitoring and surveillance, forecasting, and careful planning on when and how to respond. It's not all times that we respond, and timing is also key in response. It also requires building trustworthy relationships with the traditional media. Number 3, provide adequate human and material resources to ensure that the communication departments that are going to implement the strategy work effectively. Communication departments should not be a dumping ground for staff who do not find terminated. Communication staff must have the requisite skill set, the capacity to understand the media ecosystems, and must be able to command the use of necessary research tools to deliver. In effect, the tendency to think that anyone can be sent to work in the communication department must cease. And lastly, election management bodies must have a holistic media literacy policy that ensures that all staff, irrespective of rank and function, are media literate and thus able to proactively avoid being an unwitting source of vulnerability to the organization. For example, by engaging in online activities that can be exploited by digital bandits. I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and your patience to listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor, for such a brilliant address, very clear and comprehensive, with clear recommendations. I'm happy we are entering the subject. For us at ECONEC, communicating with stakeholders and building relationship with stakeholders is very important. And we've been through the region and we realize that some commissions are strong, others are weak. And everybody feels I'm doing well, but we feel there is room for improvement. And there's no perfection, but we need to advance for stakeholders to continue to trust us and have trust in the process. It's not another keynote address. I just want to recognize in the room representatives of political parties, National Democratic Congress, NDC, National Patriotic Party, NPP, and CPP, Convention People's Party. We also have civil society organizations represented, media, and technical partners from ASA, from International IDEA, OSIWA, and IFES. Before we proceed to the formal opening by Excellency Madam Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar, we would like as ECONEC Secretariat to seize this opportunity to present officially some publications that we have been able to work on and published. One of them is the advisory on the conduct of election in the context of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, 5 countries or many countries were conducting election, and because of the restriction, everything stopped. No registration, no training, and we were wondering if we were going to postpone or what to do. And because of this platform, ECONEC, we had virtual consultation with chairpersons, leadership of commission, and decision was taken after the second virtual meeting on the impact of the pandemic. Decision was taken to hire consultants and produce an advisory guide for the region. So I'm going to show you the guide just for, normally we give it at the high table for them to display. And the second publication is Cost of Election. ECONEC conducted Cost of Election in 2018, and we have been able to publish in French and English, and we have now the Portuguese version on paper and electronic. This study was on a sample of countries: Cabo Verde, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Nigeria, Senegal, Benin, 6 countries. So I like the high table to officially hold the document and show people that this is available, produced by ECONEC, with the support of OSIWA for the cost of election, and OSIWA again for the advisory guide. We have in the room Mr. Matthias Humpe. Please, if you can recognize you can just stand. We are grateful for OSIWA for this support. We can officially present to the audience. We are grateful for the support. OSIWA has been our support at the beginning of this venture and continue to work with us. And GIZ EPSAO took over. Thank you very much, Excellencies, dignitaries at the high table. I would like now to call on His Excellency, or Her Excellency, Fatimatu Abubakar, Honorable Fatimatu Abubakar, for the official opening address, the formal opening.
Madam President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on the protocols already established and just say good morning. I am extremely honored to be part of the 7th ECONEC General Assembly and Symposium, and I bring you warm greetings from the Government of Ghana, especially from the President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy is about popular participation and holding of leaders accountable, and election is one of the legitimate means of achieving these democratic ideals. Free and fair elections constitute a fundamental criterion for democracy, and elections have facilitated the emergence of democratic governments in West Africa. The theme for the symposium, and I quote, "An efficient communication strategy for enhanced relationship between EMBs and electoral stakeholders in West Africa," unquote, demonstrates that an election is best conceptualized as an element of a broader political process rather than a one-off event. Free and fair elections conducted on a regular basis are only one component of a healthy democratic society. A robust civil society, an independent media, a sound public administration, and an independent judiciary can help to manage the underlying tensions and grievances that elections bring to the surface. Ladies and gentlemen, an electoral commission will not be able to conduct a free and fair election if it is not independent. The extent to which electoral commissions can operate independently of political pressures and external interference is an important driver of public perceptions of electoral integrity. As a result, it directly impacts on the legitimacy of those political parties and individual politicians who are elected to political office. A commission that is seen to be compromised is unlikely to be able to confer credibility on a contested general election. In turn, this may undermine the legitimacy of the wider political system. Assessing the independence of electoral commissions is therefore important because it is an essential component of the kind of electoral reform processes that can help to strengthen new democracies. Where electoral commissions are politically neutral, professional, and committed to democratic values, they can play an important role in strengthening the electoral process itself. The legitimacy of elections cannot be separated from the competency, professionalism, and independence of the institutions administering them. Moreover, the Electoral Commission of Ghana has demonstrated that electoral commissions play an important role in shaping the success or failure of long-term efforts to improve electoral integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout the electoral process, continuous and inclusive dialogue can be helpful in reducing tensions that arise during elections. Ghana's transformation into a stable democracy has been one of Africa's success stories. It is likely that the establishment of mechanisms that foster dialogue among different political and ethnic groups, including the Inter-Party Advisory Committee established in 1994 and the National and Local Peace Councils established in 2006, have contributed to broad acceptance of the results of recent elections. Important aspects of Electoral Commission independence include whether it has a strong legal foundation that insulates it from politics, and an appointment procedure that ensures that commissioners are credible individuals and not simply stooges of one political party or another. Security of tenure, so that commissioners can make unpopular decisions without fear of losing their jobs. autonomy over decision-making in key areas such as staffing, budgets, and decision-making in relation to acquisition of electoral-related material, such as ballot papers, and the right to announce the election results without having to be first signed off by another institution. When electoral commissions are not seen to be independent, the election results that they announce are likely to be called into question, even if they are accurate. Ladies and gentlemen, the effectiveness of an election authority is largely conditioned by its autonomy. Its ability to make decisions, enforce electoral laws, and regulations depends on the amount of autonomy it has. In the case of Ghana, both the 1992 Constitution and Act 451 set up the EC as an independent entity with power to manage its own affairs. Ghana's Fourth Republic has a reputation of having a reasonably high degree of institutionalization in election administration. Its electoral and democratic success stories over the years have largely been associated with the legal framework guaranteeing its independence, the independence of the media, a robust civil society, contributions of political parties, international organizations, and competence in leadership of the Electoral Commission of Ghana actually engenders a degree of public confidence and trust in the electoral process. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also very important to note that election periods are usually characterized with a high degree of fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. This is fueled further by the growing penetration of new media, which makes it easier to spread falsehood and instigate public anger. It is therefore important for EMBs to set up highly effective, robust, and widespread communications machinery, including technology, which can identify elements of disinformation and misinformation, rapidly respond to it, and even proactively communicate to build and maintain public confidence. In the last general election, Ghana's Electoral Commission took practical steps to deal with misinformation and disinformation, and some of which include daily This, I must say, really impacted the election communications landscape of Ghana and contributed immensely to the success and credibility of the last election, because in traditional media and social media, the communication strategy was not to leave the platforms for only politicians. It was important to get the Electoral Commission to engage in conversations that will set the facts and the record straight. Ladies and gentlemen, on this note, I declare the ECONEC Biennial Symposium and 7th General Assembly meeting as officially opened. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Before we go for the group photo outside the hotel, in front of the hotel, I'd like just to, because maybe the officials will leave us, just to talk about the content a little bit. This symposium will have 3 moments. The first one, the first session, is about sharing of experience, EMB's experience in communicating with stakeholders or building relationships, constructive relationships with stakeholders. We've picked 5 countries because of the time. We wish to hear from everybody, but it will take the whole day, and we'll have to envisage to conduct the symposium on 2 days. So we will hear from Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cabo Verde, just to have an idea of what EMBs are currently doing on that front. And then this second moment, there will be a second moment, which is we are calling expert panel. We will have a contribution from Mrs. Ngone So from the UNDP, who is going to talk about institutional communication, the methodology, and the approach, and its impact. And secondly, we have Mr. Amirush Neja, who is an expert in communication, supporting NEB Ethiopia, the Electoral Commission of Ethiopia, on behalf of ECAS, European Center for Electoral Support. He will talk about digital communication. And thirdly, we have Mr. Hamza Fihri, who is from ECAS Abuja. We'll talk about the presence of EMB, online presence of EMBs, and their strategy to combat disinformation and fake news. Then we'll hear from the public exchange discussion time. And the last moment, the third moment, is a group work session where we work by table and collect key recommendations captured during the day. So without much ado, we'll invite the high table to take the lead and the usher to show us the way to in front of the hotel for the group photograph. Then we will take the coffee break, and we'll start the symposium proper by introduction of participants, and then we go into the session. Thank you very much.
Trust me, girl, they'll never respect you.
I see boys they fear marriage. Wow, danger.
My brother, your woman is making use of your brain.
Me, Mama V, now.
Our real past is here, buddy. We okay.
I don't give my number to strangers. I'm sorry.
I'm not a stranger.
From now onwards.
Plug in to the annual theme of the Church of Pentecost.